Pat Tiberi is leaving. The crew looks to be leaving. Maybe Amazon will come. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Julie Carr-Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press, Shannon Jones, former state legislator, and Ray Miller, publisher of the Columbus African American News Journal. A year ago, Pat Tiberi was said to be eyeing a run for U.S. Senate. Now he's leaving Congress altogether. The 17-year representative from the Westerville area has had enough. He says he's coming back to Columbus to lead the Ohio Business Roundtable. He says the new job will allow him to continue his policy work, push for tax reform, and be closer to his family. But the move comes as Tiberi has expressed frustration with the divisiveness in Washington. He joins several other, quote, establishment Republicans who have decided to leave Congress. Julie Carr-Smythe, announcement came out of really nowhere. He has $6 million in his campaign war chest. You don't raise that amount of money expecting to leave.
Right, and he's also in a very safe district. He was virtually assured a chance to win again. So what we're seeing really, though, is the frustration, as you mentioned, that it's difficult to get a Republican agenda through in Washington. Certainly the president has made it very difficult for many in his own party in terms of Twitter attacks and his attempts to hold them to passing repeal of Obamacare, for example, tax reform, and so forth. But he's doing it in a way that probably puts people like Pat Tiberi in a bit of a nervous position because they're sitting there simply trying to legislate in a really hot-button environment.
Jim, he's also got a pretty good private sector job he can go to.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The current director, according to the 2015 tax return, made $655,000. Pat Tiberi, as a congressman, makes about $175,000 to $200,000.
Yeah, nothing like a quadruple raise to your salary to entice you to come back home, I guess. But yeah, I think there's been health issues with his parent, with family, and he's got kids at home. I mean, there are reasons you'd want to not do the grind and go out there to Washington, especially. I mean, my goodness, you go out to Washington and what do you do? You run into Donald Trump. It's divisive as all get out, and your party's in control. I mean, my goodness, what happens at the end of 2018 if that either those margins narrow or for somehow the actually something flips to the Democrat? I mean, it's not going to get any better. So I've got to imagine he was. I'm guessing he kept raising money because, there was no sure thing that he was going to get this job. There were some other very big name candidates up for this business roundtable position. But, at the end of the day, I think once he was told the job's yours if you want it, I'm guessing it took about a cup of coffee for him to make that decision.
Yes. Minimize the family issues either, though. He's married, as you said. He has 4 daughters. And you've got to calculate tuition. All of those children are going to go to college. And that's extremely costly. And doing that on $174,000 is just not enough. As you said, if you can quadruple your salary, then that makes a lot of sense. Just makes an awful lot of sense. Yeah. He's got a birthday tomorrow, too, by the way.
It's certainly a once-in-a-lifetime job opportunity. So, with all of those things are playing into it, no doubt, these types of opportunities just come around, every 25 or 30 years. And so, notwithstanding the amount of resource that that job entails, I certainly don't blame anyone, even under the best of circumstances, to be able to take that.
And he won't have to answer questions. What do you think about Donald Trump today? I mean, he could answer those, but he doesn't have to anymore. That has to play a role with all these guys.
Yeah. It's a bonus to get away from him.
Yeah. Now, we have 2 former legislators here. Is it hard to give it up and go into the private sector, go on to something else?
No, I don't think it's really hard. I think it's once you make the decision to do it, you realize that the world is very large outside of a couple of blocks that you're working on. And look, I was a chief of staff for a congressman. Let's not underestimate how hard of a job this is. They get on an airplane, they have to maintain 2 residents, they miss all kinds of kids' activities, trying to raise a family. This is a really hard job. And when you're presented with a choice to take a once-in-a-career opportunity, I understand the attractiveness of wanting to look at the politics about it, but honestly, I think the circumstances are broader than that.
He's on the Ways and Means Committee, Pat Tiberi. He's got a pretty high position. He wanted to be chair. He didn't get that job, but he's still on the tax writing committee. They're in charge of tax reform right now. This is a big deal, but he's leaving midstream there.
Well, I think it's interesting that he set this date of January 31st, which does give more time than resigning immediately, obviously. And I think that there's hope in Washington that can get through by the end of the year. Maybe it will trickle into the first part of the next year, but I think that he tried to go as far as he absolutely could, because Richard Stoff is leaving the Business Roundtable effective the end of the year. If you're coming in as the new guy, you can only push it so far. But I think that's why we saw that January 31st
He's trying to finish
date.
that mission anyway.
Right.
Jim Siegel, as for who comes next, it is a pretty solidly Republican district. You never know, but it's definitely leans pretty sharply to the right.
Yes.
The jockeying begins. All the state senators of the state house from that area are starting to look at it. Who are the candidates we're looking at?
Well, like you said, there's a number that are eyeballing it right now. The Delaware County prosecutor, I've lost her name off the top of my head.
Carol O'Brien.
Yes, I should have known that. Franklin County. No, but not related. But yeah, she's running. I think State Senator Kevin Bacon is very likely to get in, also as a Republican, and there will be others. My guess is there'll be plenty of others. Remember, there's a lot of county officials who can run that will be able to run from cover. Because they're not on the ballot in 2018, if they lose, they can just go back to doing what they were doing before. So why not take a shot at it? I'm sure many of them are probably being told by their family and circle of friends that they'd be the best. And so who knows how many, but I think it'll be a number on the Republican side. Democrats, we'll see if they can conjure up a candidate,
Right.
because this is a tough seat.
Are Democrats going to try to get a challenge here? It would have been tough to beat an incumbent, but this is an open seat now.
It would be very, very difficult to win that seat. Like you said, he won at 67% the last time. You've got Delaware, Morrow, Licking, all those counties going, and just a very conservative area. What I'm disappointed about with Pat is not choosing a successor. I think it's so critically important that you identify, recruit, train, groom the person who's going to replace you. If he were to identify the person that he wanted to come in, and with a $6.6 million war chest, it would be guaranteed.
Isn't it better
you should
to have
want that for your constituents?
in the wide open?
I think you should want the very best person for your constituents, someone who would mirror the kind of behavior, the kind of political philosophy that you have, and the energy level and so forth and commitment that you have, as opposed to simply walking out the door and say, hey, I got myself a great job, see ya.
Shannon, is it better to do that or just leave the field wide open?
I have a lot of trust in the voters, and in a time when there's a lot of angst about political parties and even politicians, I think allowing the process to do its thing and giving plenty of opportunity for whomever wants to throw their name out there to be able to be vetted by the voters is the most important thing.
And that being said, the governor will decide how to go about this special election process for filling the seat. So it will be interesting to see how the timing of that will work. And my understanding is that a congressional office, and you would know better, but it will continue to function. Constituents can continue to get their business dealt with through staff until there is a replacement, because it looks unlikely that there could be the full primary and general process before he goes.
Just no voting.
Right.
We'd have a vote in Congress.
Right.
Okay. Tell me if you've heard this before. Pro Sports owner threatens to leave if the city cannot help pay for a new stadium. Well, the threat has come to Central Ohio as the owner of the Columbus Crew seems ready to move the Major League Soccer team to Austin, Texas. The Crew has played in Columbus for 21 years, most of them at Crew, now Mopfre Stadium. When he bought the team, Anthony Precourt seemed committed to Columbus, but that was then, 4 years ago, and this is now.
I think it was important to the Hunt family and to Major League Soccer that the Crew remain in Columbus. So we're very committed to that. We're excited to be here. I'm excited to get to know Columbus better.
We're excited about the opportunity. We think Austin is a wonderful marketplace that's got great opportunity. I see a vision of Major League Soccer being very, very successful here in Austin.
Boy, 4 years is a lifetime, Jim.
Oh, isn't it though?
What are the odds that that he says it's not a done deal yet, Anthony Precourt, that he's still holding out the chance that Columbus could get it? What are the odds that this team stays here?
Well, we had a headline this week that said in the Dispatch, it said, city leaders unclear what Crew wants. Well, what they want is to leave. I mean, I don't buy for a second that this downtown stadium thing is anything more than just an excuse to leave. I mean, I don't think they really care if they get a downtown stadium or not. To be honest, I think this is a done deal. I think Major League Soccer is probably in on it. Major League Soccer wants a team in Cincinnati. They want Carl Linder involved. They want his money involved. And I think this is how they're going to. They don't want two teams sitting on top of each other in Columbus and Cincinnati. So they're going to. So you know, if you don't like the fact that it's going to Austin, maybe you can think of it as going to Cincinnati. Maybe that'll make you feel better. But you know, Austin is the largest city in the United States without a professional sports team. If you listen to them, some of the comments that are coming out of Austin, it's sort of like, yeah, we love soccer here, but you know, we're not going to build you a stadium, and even that. So that kind of tells you that this is all there's some plan that's been in the works here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Major League Soccer was also helping out with it. And I just think it's probably a done deal.
The sale agreement with the Hunt family, the previous owners to the Crew, you couldn't sell it for 10 years except if you wanted to move to Austin. I mean, there's a reason why that gets stuck in there. Has the city done enough, Ray, to help the Columbus Crew? Should they do anything to help a professional sports team?
It almost seems like the city was blindsided on the move. And I agree with Jim. It's a foregone conclusion. They've been having the conversations for the last couple of years, and that's been reported now as well. But it seems to me that the city would have had more contact with the owners and have a better sense as to whether they were going to stay in the town. They're gone.
No chance.
They're gone. Yeah.
Even though, you know, as I understand it, that was the first soccer-specific stadium in the country. There's a lot of goodwill around the fact that they tried it here first, and you know, I'm sure it's very disappointing to the people who do love.
Yeah, they're one of the original franchises in Major League Soccer.
Yeah.
Shannon, you're from the Cincinnati area. They've had a very good run with their soccer team. They play at the University of Cincinnati. They draw very well, so there's definitely a market there.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job. Not only has the team really played well, but the community has really rallied around it. But you know, Cincinnati has been through this stadium issue, professional stadium issue, for several decades with the Bengals Stadium and the New Red Stadium, and there's a lot of fatigue about that. And so, you know, at the end of the day, communities have to decide if they want to come together and make these investments. And so we'll know there's going to be a state capital budget in not, you know, too distant future. And if the business community and the community leaders rally around it, then you'll know if they really want to stay. But in the absence of that, it's hand-to-hand combat.
I'll tell you what communities are tired of, and that is all of these tax abatements being given to various corporations.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, including the Crew. You know, legislators are too quick oftentimes to say, oh, I'd be totally supportive of putting money in the capital budget to keep this team here. And then there are people on the other side of town who are paying their taxes, who are in bad shape financially, and they're getting nothing out of the deal.
And I will say, if this, and as far as the state capital budget goes, I mean, if this ends up shaping up as somehow a fight between Cincinnati and Columbus over who gets a stadium to keep the soccer team, even if that's not really what's happening, if that's how it's sort of viewed in the public, then that's not going to happen. Because I mean, the last time, I mean, there was like $10 million or $5 million in the capital budget, I think 2 years ago, to help the Browns build a practice facility in Columbus so they could just move their spring training or their their preseason workouts down to Columbus, and that got nixed because Cleveland and Berea got very upset by that. So
And the Columbus folks, the residents didn't want it. I mean, the Columbus
Right.
folks have said over and over, we do not want private money going to pro sports stadiums. I mean, we do own the Blue Jackets
Right.
arena now, but that was sort of a backdoor deal.
Right. I mean, voters here have been through this many a time and have been pretty clear about what they do and don't want. And especially downtown, I think now it's pretty built out with the arena and the baseball stadium and.
Should Blue Jackets fans be worried? They're doing well now. They had a great season last year. They're off to a good start this year. Attendance is up. They seem to be stable financially, Jim, but should Jackets fans be worried? Is this a warning shot for them?
always, I think you should always be concerned at some level that, will the team stay or go? I don't think it's something you need to worry about a lot on a daily basis. But there was talk of this for the Blue Jackets regarding their stadium deal. I mean, they're not the backdoor. I won't even begin to try to explain how it all went down involving Nationwide and payments and such. But the casino revenue, it just hasn't worked out the way they had hoped. So there was talk at one point that maybe that could thwart all this, but it has kind of stabilized, at least for now.
And that arena is 20 years old now, almost. That's antique in arena land.
Yeah.
I think they should be very, concerned about it.
Yeah.
I think that the mayor and the business leaders need to pay a visit to the owners.
I think the current owners wouldn't
well.
leave. It's just if they ever sold it down the road. I think that's always the problem. Let's get to our next topic. It's bad enough that Austin is going to steal our soccer team. It seems the city's also the favorite for Amazon's second headquarters. But that's not stopping Columbus and every other city east of the Rockies from making a bid for the huge project. The promise prized 50,000 workers making six-figure salaries. Here's the city's proposal. Talk about tax abatements. First reported by the Dispatch, Amazon would not pay any property taxes for 15 years, which could be worth up to $2.3 billion. The city would give Amazon a 35% income tax credit for 15 years, worth up to $400 million. The city promises to improve its transit system with roads and autonomous electric vehicles, no light rail. Amazon would promise $45 million in new annual payroll, and the company would promise $50 million in property investments in that third year, or by that third year. Ray Miller, that's $3 billion if you add it up, rough math. It's a lot of money. Would it be worth it?
If we could land it, it absolutely would be worth it. And I think it's a good process to go through. I think with the city saying we want to be a player in this game with all of the other major cities across the country, it causes you to look at your assets. It causes you to look at the things that you need to do to become more competitive with other major cities across the country. I think it's the right thing to do. If you didn't do it, you would really be criticized, and justifiably so.
But you just said it's not fair the company
I'm not
tax
done.
abatements.
I'm not
Okay.
done.
All right. I was going to let you off the hook there.
Not at all. We've been giving far too many tax abatements to corporations, local corporations, even who could well afford to build the facilities that they've been getting. We've got Miss Jones over on Oak Street who's paying her taxes under duress almost, right? And you've got nothing coming to the inner city in any major way. So there has to be, in this proposal that we're talking about, there has to be some guarantees in our inner cities as well, and tax abatements for those individuals, and investments of resources and training and hiring and guaranteed hiring within those communities.
No sites have been named in the city's proposal, but they're talking transit hubs and things like that.
Denver, Austin, yeah.
The governor's been kind of interesting on a similar project with Foxconn that many people have been trying to land, and he made an interesting statement on that he didn't want to be in the position of bribing a company to come. It made me feel like he wanted to really express confidence in just the overall. Of course, he's the governor, so he's not running an individual city that's going to have to fight for this. But the idea being, well, if we have the right tax climate and we have the right policies in place, our state is going to be the most attractive, and we're not going to have to then tweak it here and there, because you can get into a position where, we were just talking with the sports stadium, where you get one city and a state bidding against another city and a state, and then states bidding against each other, and it ultimately it's just a game of chess. It's not really benefiting the whole nation in terms of the economy.
Well, that's happening here. Cincinnati and Cleveland are both making a bid, I believe.
Yes,
Maybe
they both-
Dayton as well, I think.
Yeah, in fact,
Youngstown is
Youngstown and
Zanesville. Well, maybe not Zanesville.
But I think this is a little different in that it's sort of a request for proposal concept, and as long as that's transparent and taxpayers can take a look at what that is. I'm a little concerned because I just read that the Cleveland proposal, they've refused to disclose the details of that, and so I think that they're going to be under a lot of pressure to say this isn't proprietary. You have to show your hand here now. But I would view this as slightly different than some of the other Amazon distribution centers, for example, which is just a joke what communities are having to kind of jump through on those sorts of things. This is slightly different.
I'll say that I think, look, Amazon is going to get a great tax deal and abatements deal and incentives deal no matter where they go. That's clear. They're literally getting billions of dollars thrown at them right now, and for good reason. This kind of a project comes along about once in a lifetime in terms of jobs and income. But what you got to do is look at what does Amazon want. Amazon wants an area with at least 1 million people. Well, Columbus has that. They want an area that's pretty highly educated. Columbus is pretty good with that. They want an area with good mass transit. Nope, we don't have that. And in fact, putting in bike lanes downtown to clog up traffic more is about, is not going to count as mass transit. And I don't, and promising them autonomous vehicles. Where are we going to get autonomous vehicles from if they're, in the next 10 years? They're not. They're on their way, but then again, everyone else will have autonomous vehicles too if we have them. So
We do have the Smart Grid project.
Yeah. Ray, are they going to regret not putting in light rail when they had a chance maybe 10 years ago when the mayor was talking about it? Business leaders wanted no part of it. It's not even mentioned as one of the possibilities in this transit system they're promising Amazon.
Yeah, it certainly would make us more competitive right now. I think at the time that it was being talked about, the public wasn't ready for it, quite frankly. But in terms of mass transit overall and then high-speed rail, yeah, we would be far more attractive. We'd also be more attractive if we had a professional football team and a professional baseball team and a professional basketball team, beyond the Clippers.
You know who has light rail, though? Austin. All right, our last topic. Aside from their similar blue-collar Pennsylvania backgrounds, former Vice President Joe Biden and Governor John Kasich don't have much in common. One thing they can agree on, partisan behavior in Washington has gone too far. This week, the two sat down in the state of Delaware for a discussion on bridging political divides in Washington. The Republican and Democrat blame part of the problem on partisan politics.
The system itself has been breaking down because of base politics. Why did Democrats go out of the window on health care? Well, because if you don't stand behind Obamacare, Bernie and the boys will come and get you. And if you're a Republican and you try to cross the base of the Republican Party, they come get you in a primary.
So what's happening? Both political parties are moving more to the extremes. The center is shrinking. And that doesn't mean the center per se is good. But God, how can you run this country without reaching a consensus? The system is built in a way it's not possible.
Shannon Jones, is it true that the fringes have taken over, and how does the center get back to in control, if that's the case?
I think this is a really interesting exercise, and I appreciate the fact that there is this conversation happening, and there's a yearning out in the public for this kind of conversation. But it clearly isn't the majority view. And so we want to talk about it in this as it's the parties or it's the base, but it's really the people, and that's where their heads are right now. So until the people want to have a different kind of conversation, we're not going to have a different kind of conversation.
Ray, what are the chances of those two bringing the divide together?
I think it's great that they're having the conversation. You know, we've become so uncivil, that's for sure. The President of the United States is endorsing the Ku Klux Klan, the White Citizens Council, organizations like that, the alt-right. Steve Bannon's got his target list. I mean, it's a mean-spiritedness that's so pervasive in the country right now. So I commend Governor Kasich and certainly Joe. I mean, who can not like Joe?
It's kind of cool seeing them both on stage.
Right, right. And we did see in the same week, we saw George W. Bush come out and make a very impassioned speech about the dangers of not just divisiveness, but some of the hate that sort of seems to be running through all of these statements.
Going to get your off-the-record parting shots. Ray Miller, you're up first.
I think Donald Trump will be impeached within the next 3 months.
Short and sweet. All right. Shannon Jones.
I think defying the odds that both the Bengals and the Browns are going to win this weekend.
Because they seldom win on the same
That's right.
weekend.
That's right.
Interesting. Julie.
I'm going to be watching for follow-up on Senator Cliff Height, who resigned this week from the state Senate, and he made some mistakes on the way he treated a state worker and acted inappropriately, and now we're going to see sexual harassment training in the Ohio Senate.
And Jim.
I'm going to predict that there'll be at least 6 Republicans from 4 different counties running in the 12th congressional district primary.
Wow. Interesting. Remember back in 2014, a year after the Columbus Crew owner, a year after he took over, he took the Crew off of television. He put them just on one cable system, which basically turned them off for half the city. People said, why did he do that? 4 years later, no support, he says, of the team. You wonder what's going on there. Anyway, also, I want to thank everyone who helped with our new set, our new graphics. It's a team effort here at WOSU. I hope you like the look. It definitely looks good from this perspective, and I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in this. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.